Welcome to the Branded Impact Podcast. On this show, we go beyond surface level branding, honest conversations with industry leaders, behind the scenes of aligned brand building, and actionable insights to help you elevate your presence. I'm your host, Jocelyn Espejo, aka Joe. Hit subscribe and join me each week for the Branded Impact Podcast. Hello, I am so excited to have Deb North today. She is the founder of Yes Athletics, a brand that was born out of one bold question: why aren't there wrestling shoes made for girls? What started out as a solution for her daughter has grown into a fast-scaling, purpose-driven company with national retail partnerships and plans to expand into other sports like flag football. Deb is a trailblazer for women in business and sports and a true example of leading with faith over fear. Today, we're diving in how she's building a brand that's making room for the next generation of female athletes, one yes at a time. Deb, welcome to the Branded Impact Podcast. I am so excited to have you here today. Can you start at the beginning and just share what inspired you to start Yes Athletics?
My daughter wanted to wrestle, and in that journey, we discovered that there was no wrestling shoes for girls. There was still just the old school black and white. Everything was boys and boy sizes. This is one of the fastest growing sports in the United States. Girls need their own gear and apparel, and they need fun things. So just timing worked out that I ended up coming up with this idea and realized that no one else was doing it. And we launched in 2021.
Tell me more a little bit about you're serving in an underserved space. So you're really just stepping into a space that really wasn't built with girls in mind. I think the transition for girls in wrestling, I didn't really hear about girls wrestling in school or new sports. So when you're walking through this, I guess, can you share some of the early challenges that you had while you're building this brand for women or for girls in a male dominated industry?
I live in Kansas, and Kansas has been kind of on the forefront. I mean, they sanctioned in 2020. So what that means is girls have their own championship, so state championship. So before, girls were wrestling boys, the few that did. So it grew to the point where they needed to have their own sanctioned event. There's been a huge movement since I started where states are sanctioning. So luckily, I mean, a lot of the men realized that if girls enter the sport, it's good for the sport as a whole. It's one of those sports where people are just really passionate about the sport. And so luckily, a lot of the men realized, okay, if we grow the girls side, then the boy side is going to follow. And that's actually what's happened. The Wall Street Journal just did an article on it, actually.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So there's a direct link to the sport itself growing, even on the boys' side, now that the girls has grown.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. So, I mean, I guess some of the challenges I guess I'm still just baffled. Truly, probably the only brand out there that's owned by a woman, run by a woman, and we come up with innovative solutions. I mean, it started with shoes and now we're in apparel. Like this year we discovered there's no singlets with period protection. Some of the more obvious things, but when you're a woman, you realize these challenges, right? Girls weren't wearing sports bras. So high compression, high cut sports bra. So we created a high cut sports bra. So just some of those things like that, where you realize it's good that there's a woman in this space who's solving some of these problems for girls.
I love that because so many times we're faced with challenges where we joke sometimes where I'm like, who designed this? Like
Right? No.
it had to have been a man. But these are the things that you just don't think about. The men don't have to worry about that. I know with football, like you have to worry about some protection, but it's not quite the same as like the women and the girls. And especially in that teenage group where you are encountering having a monthly visit, and there's nothing more embarrassing or worse than like trying to figure out how to do that with equipment and gear. And
Another big issue was remember the old school singlets where they hung way down for boys?
almost like to the top of like the belly button, right? Like it was
Right, I
pretty
know.
low cut.
Girls they had to make a girls cut singlet that's cut higher. So that's a requirement. And now a sports bra, just last year, the National Federation of High Schools made it a requirement that a sports bra had to be part of the equipment and of the uniform.
Well, that makes sense too,
Yeah.
because that's just a lot of moving pieces and parts that can
It's a
come out.
function. So the goal is to have these girls focus on their sport and focus on winning and being successful as opposed to worrying about, am I going to fall out of my singlet? Am I gonna bleed through? And so
I love that they're actually able to be able to focus on being an athlete and being able to compete and that your uniform is not going to fail you. And then you have to make a choice between fixing your uniform or finishing the competition and the fight that you're in.
So women's cut singlets have been around for a minute, but we're definitely playing in that space.
I love it.
We're the only women-owned business making them though.
You've had some major wins in addition to obviously launching this and creating more colors. I think is what we had talked about a little bit that you've got options now. So the girls can find shoes and singlets that look girly versus just being the black and white or the kind of no personality. But then you've had some major wins walking into this space. Talk to me a little about how you were able to land a national contract because you are in Dick's Sporting Goods.
The good thing about knowing some really awesome women is generally women entrepreneurs help each other out. The president of my transportation company introduced me to Brenda Conroy with Conroy Sales Group, who then took on the project and she helped us secure the contract with Dick's.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
So that's a piece. It's that collaboration where it's women helping women or women supporting
right.
women. And there are a lot of us in this space that are willing to collaborate and that are willing to help. But then I still feel like there's this overwhelming number of women who feel like they have to do it themselves and that they have to either figure it out themselves or you still occasionally encounter people who, what was it that someone referred it to the other day? They were like, it was almost like they want to keep the information for themselves. So the collaboration piece where you're able to work with somebody and then I love the fact that you're honest. I think I brought that up earlier before we got on the show. And I was like, I think it's amazing that you were able to get this national contract and that you're index. And that is a significant accomplishment. I mean, for a brand, period. And then you were like, well, I didn't do it, on my own. I worked with a sales rep. And I said, okay, but there's still something to the fact that you were able to walk in that space. You utilized the connections that you had. You explored an opportunity and you used another woman, correct, to help you do what she does best to help pull your business into landing a national contract, which has taken your business to all new heights. And now it's opened up opportunities for you to grow and expand and do more.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, that was that's a really cool opportunity for us.
So how has that shifted your business? So landing a national contract, like being in Dick's, like what did that do for your business?
I think it just gave us more validity. I mean, it validated kind of what we're doing. Dick's was definitely a target. They have a women's CEO and they're really focusing on women's sports. They realize how much you can monetize women's sports. Now that you hear of sports bars where all they play is women's sports, and you see with
Interesting.
every sport, like the NCAA softball and just the Final Four, you never used to hear about the women's Final Four, but now you hear about the
Right.
women's Final Four. So there's just a huge push with women's sports and with a women's CEO. I mean, they were definitely a target for us because I feel like we fit with their brand really well right now. I mean, we're still in conversations with them to do, follow-on buys and we have a new shoe that's going to launch this year. So we're hopefully going to get it on the shelves.
So then now as you launch on other products or bring on other things, you can have the conversation. Does it fit? Can we get this on the shelf, as you said, as well? Like that helps so much because now when you're approaching other places or other opportunities, you can be like, listen, we're being carried in this national retail store. They obviously thought there was something to what we have to offer. What are some of the other things that you've done, though, as far as like really expanding your brand, getting the word out there? How have you been able to establish that you exist in a space that most people don't even know that there's an option?
We started very grassroots and I would say we still are pretty grassroots. We have about 50 brand ambassadors across the United States.
Okay.
And they're little girls, 4 years old, all the way up to college age girls. And they get deep discounts on shoes and apparel. And in return, they give us content and promote us. And then they get an affiliate link so they can make commission on what they're doing. So it works out great for, you see a lot of like GoFundMe's. Hey, I'm trying to travel to this tournament, help support my journey. But this is a way we can help support them too. So we started very grassroots. So, people would see our cute shoes and be like, where'd you get those? And then it
Okay.
just kind of spirals from there. So we also, I think it's important to know kind of each customer persona, like that customer persona of our, direct to consumer business is different. Those are girls age 4 to 14. Now they don't have the checkbook. Mom and dad, you have to kind of sell to two people. Whereas you just mentioned, like retailers, like a Dick's, I mean, that's a whole different customer persona. Your customer is a purchasing agent, buyer of footwear. And then we also do teams business. So that's a whole different customer persona of coaches and athletic directors who need to outfit their teams.
Well, talk to me a little bit about how you're branding and how you're directing it then, because I think that's huge. And that's one of the things I talk about a lot too with brands is that you have to really know who your target is. And then I guess you are grassroots. And so it sounds like there's kind of been some overlap, but did you spend some time really focusing on one and then expanding into the other? Or have you been trying to really go after all three at the same time?
We started direct to consumer. We wanted to get the name out there, get the word out there, build some momentum. We have a Shopify store, and then we also started on Amazon because
Okay.
people Google on Amazon. I mean, they look for products on Amazon versus Google. So
Yes.
we do invest in Google pay per click and have a presence out there. But that was our first strategy, was just to get the word out. And that was through brand ambassadors and through Amazon and our Shopify store.
So if we're looking at that was our first direct, and you mentioned it a minute ago, your target is the 4 to 14-year-old that's going to be wearing the stuff, but they don't have the checkbook. So with the brand ambassadors, they're creating content. I'm assuming that's creating some buzz where you're getting the girl to come to mom or dad saying, these are the shoes I want. But then how do you get them to convert? So what is there a difference when you're asking your brand ambassadors to send content? Are you giving them direction on what kind of content you would like for them to send?
Right. I have her name is Ria. She manages my social media, but she also manages user generated content. And so obviously as a minor, the parent has to be very involved. They have to
Right.
authorize them to be able to issue and submit content and things like that.
But when you're talking to your creating user generated content, was your intent to say, when you guys send us content, can you make it specifically trying to target other little girls like you? And then how are you spinning it to get mom or dad to buy?
Right. Yes. The girls, it's all fun. And some of the older girls do like Technique Tuesday or Tip Tuesday, Monday Motivation. They do unboxing videos. I mean, anything, because it's kind of their little business too. So they want to convince their peers to buy the shoes and then they get a commission. Right. So our story is what resonates more with the parents. The little girls they want the cute shoes. How many times has your daughter come to you and said, please buy me this? And yeah, you might do a little research, but at the end of the day, and then once you see the story or hear the story, that's what really resonates with the parents.
So how are you sharing that story? What are some of the things that you're doing to share your story?
That's one of those things I always feel like I'm continuously working on is
Yeah.
trying to craft the story and make it even better. I mean, just through a lot of it's like organically. I mean, when they come up to us at pop-up events, I mean, we talk to them. There's, blurbs on our website. We try to do videos of me every now and again.
Okay.
That talks through kind of why we started it, or clips of some of our original videos, and why we're different. So that's how we try to get the story out there.
I love that. You're like grassroots and boots on the ground because you guys are going and you were just at a major convention. Has that, or you were going to be, I think.
We were a sponsor for the National Women's Collegiate Wrestling Championships. It's going to be NCAA next year. That was another exciting thing that happened last year.
That's amazing.
NCAA said this is going to be a championship sport. And so until that happens, it's managed. It's called the National Women's Wrestling Collegiate Championships, and it's been in Iowa the past 2 years. So that's D1, D2, D3. So we were a sponsor for that event. I feel like we're a brand that has a very philanthropic heart. So we were a major sponsor for the Shrine Duels here in Kansas. So it used to be called the East West, and kind of like the Shrine football game. It's now in wrestling, and it's really fun and it's a great event. They have, ambassadors from the Shriners Hospital there. We were, sponsor for them too.
That's amazing. I love that. At what point in your business did you decide, okay, now I want to start looking at exploring a national retailer or going into that business to business kind of market?
So that was always a target. I mean, I think I called Academy like the first month I was in business.
Okay.
Because I happened to meet someone who was like, "Oh, I used to work here, and my friend is a buyer." And I asked again another woman. She has a food company, and she was on the shelves of Hy-Vee. I'm like, "How do you do it?" She's like, "I just walked in the store and asked for the manager, and then asked for shelf space." I mean, you start that, and then you get the names of who you need to talk to. So again, it's very grassroots. I mean, that's one way to do it, is just to walk in a store and point out to them, like, "Look, you've got wrestling shoes here, but you don't have any girls' wrestling shoes." So
Okay.
that was very, very early on. I mean, just with those kind of things, you just have to be fearless with trying to get on retail shelves.
I love it. So then but you had like a strategy, I guess, and your main
Yeah.
focus then was for a little while the direct to consumer and then the conversation. So you were trying what was working. You were talking to other people and literally walking into the stores and asking. And then through that, is that how you ended up getting the sales reps conversation? Like
So
name?
that was the strategy early on. I mean, and again, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, I was in the sales
Right.
business before. But again, it takes meeting people that know what they're doing to kind of coach you and mentor you through that process. A lot of it's just the natural evolution. I mean, if your shoes are well known, they're going to go in a store and ask for them. And then they say, gosh, we need to have these. With our team's business, again, that was a really natural evolution because these girls or brand ambassadors, coaches would ask us, like, hey, can you do singlets for our team? I'd be like, at one point I said no, but then I was like, no, I need to figure out how to do this.
I
So
love
then
that.
we launched our apparel in 2023.
So that's one of the things I try to encourage people to do is to pick one and focus on that. And I tell them the rest of it will kind of come. And so you mentioned natural evolution. You focused on the consumer, and then you've got girls wearing it, and the coaches are coming going, okay, how can we make this branded for our team? And I love how you said no. That's actually very similar to mine. As far as I've always said, no, I don't do that. And then after about the second or third, I'm like, well, can I make this happen? But you're staying in your lane. So everything is still regarding the sport. It's still doing, or girls, like you're still serving that piece in wrestling and sports. And then one of the things you mentioned was, I think you said fear, or like, what was it you said about walking into the store?
To be fearless. I mean,
Fearless. Okay, so I feel like that's going to help us transition because one of the things I really love about your brand, it resonated so much with me when we chatted, is your faith over fear. Because I say that often in my journey too, that sometimes it just really is taking that leap of faith and not letting fear hold you back. So what does that mean, faith over fear in your business? What does that mean to you?
so kind of a story there. We called our business Yes Athletics because my daughter was inspired me so much. She was 9 years old. She walked into this room to try wrestling. At that point, she was one of the only girls, maybe one of two. And I would have never been able to do that when I was 9 years old. So that just really inspired me. And all these girls that were doing this sport were just fearless. They were just so we call it Yes Athletics because these girls are saying yes to scary things. Yeah, it might look scary. It might be scary to think about walking, being the only girl in the room. It might be scary to think that the girls who don't understand the sport are going to make fun of you. Now that doesn't happen as much anymore, obviously, because it's a growing and there's a lot of really great girls that do the sport. So let's fast forward. We formed our business in 2019, and the plan was to do like a soft launch or kind of do an early launch in summer of 2020, like getting it out there kind of before the season, start building some momentum because the season, November is the biggest selling month, and the season runs from November to March. So you see sales pick up about October. Fast forward, and in March, everything was shut down. And here's this sport that is high contact. You're definitely not 6 feet from each other. I just had to go back to our roots, which was saying yes to something scary. And if my daughter can do it, and if that's what our company's all about, then we need to launch this in the middle of a global pandemic. So our
Amazing.
shoes technically were out there in late 2020, around November of 2020. So 2021 was basically our first full year in the business.
Okay.
We did some sales on Amazon in 2020, but nothing overly
A
substantial.
lot of people would have probably just stepped back and been like, this was a sign I'm not moving forward. And you did the opposite. And I love that you're inspired by your daughter. I think that is so moving because she had the fear to walk into a space that is a male dominated, or was at the time. I think that's all phenomenal as far as if she loves it and wants to continue. But what you guys are able to do in the sport is great. You're making such a big impact for the women who want to play and now can be like, you know what, I can walk into this space and still be a girl
Right.
and compete versus a girl that's going to have to wear boys' clothes to go compete for the sport.
Right. You still see teams out there and you still see the girls, they have to have the t-shirts on underneath the singlet. And you're like, tell me your coach's name. We're going to solve this. We can't have this anymore. But
I think that's where you're going to have to start using that like ambassador kind of
right,
link and be like, hey, here's my card. Did you know that we have options that have sports bras? You don't have to wear this.
right.
Kind of want to slide into empowering the fact that you're being inspired by your daughter, but at the same time, you are leading and you are making an impact. So she's going to be able to look back and watch what you've done. Can you walk me through, I guess, some of the like walking the talk for a founder? Because entrepreneurship can be challenging. Running a business, launching in 2019 to walk into COVID, what keeps you moving forward through what can sometimes be like a
End of the
setback?
day, right? I think it's important for founders to surround themselves with other women entrepreneurs. I mean, I have a lot of friends that have businesses, but a lot of them bought the business or inherited the business. Definitely still challenging, definitely takes a lot of nerve, but to build something novel that's, brand new out there and building it from scratch is a whole different animal. So finding people that have done that and are going through the pains that you're going through, whether it be supply chain, which was another COVID situation. Now we're running into tariffs. Now we're running into financial markets are drying up. Banks aren't willing to loan and investors aren't willing to invest. And whatever challenge it is, if you have that support group, it will help tremendously.
I love that. And I think that's one of the pieces that was the whole foundation of this podcast was to be able to reach out and create a space where we can share some of our wins, some of the challenges so that we can realize that we're not alone. And hey, entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. It is not. And
It
for
is
the people that have made it, it has been through blood, sweat, tears,
right.
lots of dancing in the, at least for me, dancing in the kitchen to literally turning around and being like, what am I doing? Like, this is
100%. No,
like,
right. There's been so many times. And I just met a gal. I was at an event last night and I met a gal and she's like, gosh, she started her business. She went kind of like me, a whole different business when she was in her 40s. And she's like, I'm in debt. I've maxed out my credit cards. I depleted my savings. And the girl I was with, one of my guests, we were like, we see you. We're here. We're here for it. So yeah, I mean, it's
you start getting the head nods, like the that one hits to the core. And I think it's that, like you mentioned earlier, women are willing to support and encourage, but you also have to be willing to go out and ask and be willing to
Mhm.
receive and to put yourself in that space. And so I think, if you are in an entrepreneurship journey and you're feeling lonely, just pick up the phone, send out a message out on a DM. Like, it is really not that scary, but it is. But then, follow in the footsteps of our little ones who are willing to walk up to complete strangers or walk into a space where it's not dominated for them. And they're like, well, I'm going to try it. What's the worst that can happen? I change my
Right.
mind. Like, end of the day. And then you kind of touched on something, started over in your 40s. I feel like there was a piece where growing up, I thought you had to have it figured out and they'd be successful until then. But there are so many people that have not started their business until their 40s or 50s. I think Martha Stewart was in her late 40s or early 50s before she decided to pivot and then became huge. And so it's not too late. It is not,
No,
age is a number. It's really just whether or not you are willing to take that leap of faith and not let fear stand in your way to pursue something.
right.
And
Yeah,
I
it's
think that's
scary.
awesome.
You're looking at your retirement going, okay, is this going to pay off? There's the faith element right there.
Yeah, 100%. One more thing as we're kind of wrapping up for today. For anybody that's listening and are building brands with these big missions, like kind of taking into a space that's underserved and they're kind of new, what's the one thing you'd want them to hear from your journey?
Gosh, I mean, I feel like I have so much I could teach people or I think most people are like me and you don't want to see other people repeat your mistakes. I mean, there's things I would definitely if turn back time I would do differently. I think every entrepreneur would tell you that. So again, I think if you can identify groups to get involved with. I'm really fortunate in the Kansas City area. That's where the Kauffman Foundation is, which is just kind of this mecca of entrepreneurship. From there, it's just sprouted all kinds of accelerators. So whether it's a cohort, like I went through 10,000 small businesses, free cohort underwritten by Goldman Sachs, I would say lifelong learning, continuous learning. From there, again, organically, you're going to meet these amazing people that are all on the same journey as you that will give you great advice. Some of the people I met in my 10,000 small businesses cohort are on my board of advisors. I mean, they're, e-commerce, they're doing millions of dollars on Amazon and I want to learn how they got there.
I love that.
Just finding people, just lifelong learning. I guess I'll just sum up what I was going to say with that. Lifelong learning.
Lifelong learning, I'm going to tag on, put yourself in the room with people that have already made it or that are where you want to go. And then, I like to say, I don't have the fear of being the person that's the least successful in a room. And I actually prefer it.
In the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yes. And that's where I'm like, I want to be the person. And I was like, it's not really smartest or not. I was like, gosh, I want to be the least successful person in the room so that I can soak in and learn, like, what did you do? What can I avoid? Can I do a quantum leap from where I'm at to where I want to get to by utilizing support and collaboration and all that stuff? What's next for Yes Athletics? I guess, what are you the most excited about right now?
We're definitely excited about these new singlets with period protection. We really want to lean into our team's business and we're going to hopefully triple that this year. So we just hired a sales rep in Delaware who's going to cover New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, and then a new sales rep in the St. Louis area. It's going to cover Missouri, Illinois, and Kentucky. So
Wow.
we really want to, we're leaning into that.
Leaning into that and growing in the team's business and really just finding another niche that you were able to serve for this girl's uniform and industry. I love that so much for you. Well, Deb, where can we find you? If people are listening and they want to connect and they want to learn more about Yes Athletics, tell us where we can find you.
Our website is yesathletics.usa.com. We are on Instagram, we're on Facebook, TikTok. You can follow me on LinkedIn. It's under Deb Tompkins North, I think, or might just be under Deb North now. And from there, you can see our company on LinkedIn. So we are
Perfect.
everywhere.
They're everywhere. YesAthleticsUSA.com. And you can check the links in the show notes. We'll also have everything linked for you there. So if you are interested in purchasing, if you've got a daughter in the wrestling space, or if you are interested in connecting and helping her grow, please support Deb. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate all of your insight and just your willingness to really kind of give back to the other women entrepreneurs that are coming alongside or maybe even behind you. That's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Branded Impact Podcast. If today's episode sparked something in you, please take a second to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend who's ready to unlock their rebrand era. And if you're ready for a brand that's rooted in authenticity and built for impact, one that truly reflects your story, your energy, and your evolution, let's connect. Head to brandingbyjoe.com or DM me on Instagram at brandingbyjoe. Thanks for hanging out. Now get out there, show up with purpose, and make your branded impact. I'll see you next week.